Nerdrotic.com.
I've lost count how many times I've started a video like this, but it's been another bad week for Disney.
Oh no. Anyway, last week...
And we are just under 2 weeks away from what Disney was hoping would be their biggest hit of the year, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which is doomed. And we'll get to that shortly. I also believe I've read the most insanely idiotic legacy media article this year, and that is saying something. But before we do that, please join me, you over 771,000 practitioners of common sense and lovers of all things good, and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet, as we recap Disney's failures over the last 7 or 8 months. Why am I doing this again? Because it's fun.
Prepare to meet Kali in hell.
Disney has lost millions of subscribers and billions of dollars on their fledgling streaming service D+. Disney Star Wars is dead, and their cash cow that was the MCU, which is now the MCU, is on its way to the abattoir.
C'est de la merde.
Disney fired their CEO Bob Chapek in the middle of the night on a Sunday while he was at an Elton John concert.
Farewell.
They followed that up by firing 2 Marvel executives, including Victoria Alonso. And just in the last couple of days, the CFO has stepped down and the diversity and inclusion officer.
The what now?
They brought back Bobby Iger, who some shills call Papa Iger.
I am so happy right now, I may actually cry. Bob Iger, Big Papa Iger, is back, running the company again, at least for a little while.
And what has he done since he's been back? Proving that there is some balance to the universe, lord over his own failures.
Earlier in February, Disney announced 7,000 job cuts as part of its cost-cutting measures to save $5.5 billion in its annual costs.
Including 2 massive D+ failures, Willow and She-Hulk. Strange Worlds was a disaster, Antifa Man Commie Mania bombed, The Little Mermaid floundered. Fast forward to today, Elemental becomes the 3rd Pixar flop in a row. And it looks like another flop is right around the corner, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Dysentery, which is currently tracking for a $60 to $70 million opening weekend. That would barely beat the 3-day total of Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, which came out 15 years ago. It also doesn't help that Indiana Jones and the Insufferable Feminist was panned at Cannes. But not to worry, Bobby Iger and Lucasfilm coordinated a special screening for the Homers in LA. As a matter of fact, it went down a point, sitting at 56% with all critics and 47% with top critics. But the only person I trust is Chris Gore. What did he have to say?
The whole movie felt like AI made an Indiana Jones movie. Does that make sense? The thing that ruined the movie for me is Phoebe Waller-Bridge. She is like, whatever you disliked about Brie Larson's character in Captain Marvel, it's worse. This is worse.
Indiana Jones and the Disaster of Destiny isn't a film anybody wanted or needed. And while on the surface this looks like Lucasfilm's last attempt to get something out of a property they haven't completely destroyed, based on everything I've heard, it just sounds like Kathleen Kennedy wants to finish the job. And I believe now we know why respected filmmaker James Mangold melted down and had a Twitter tantrum 2 years ago. And here we are on the precipice of the first Lucasfilm film release since The Rise of Skywalker, and it's going to be yet another disaster because Disney and Lucasfilm are tainted brands. No, it doesn't help that they put out complete garbage for the last few years. It also doesn't help that they got political, they got lazy, and they started attacking the paying customer. And this can be done through the very willing and thankfully incompetent legacy media. Who could forget bangers like this one? Star Wars The Last Jedi abuse blamed on Russian trolls and political agendas. Report finds half of negative comments aimed at Rian Johnson's movie came from Twitter bots or trolls, indicating fan backlash was overstated. Was it now? Disney Star Wars didn't invent fan baiting, but they certainly perfected it.
I love the way you said that. The trolls.
The trolls descended and they ruin fun things as they so often do on the internet. But like, they also highlight these societal problems of like, wow, this is a lot louder of a voice than I thought it was. Like, you know, when you were first casted, before any of that nonsense hit and you had to deal with all of that, were you as aware or did that make you more aware of that conversation that needed to happen?
I was aware pretty immediately, purely because of the reaction that we got from announcing the cast. No matter what I do, there's always going to be someone who says something bad about it. I can't control that.
After racist Star Wars fans reportedly drove Kelly Marie Tran from Instagram, Disney needs to respond. In the case of Kelly Marie Tran, that was never proven to this day, but it worked so well, they tried it again with Obi-Wan and Moses Ingram.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
You've talked about this, how they're trying to help you prepare for this backlash, and there are people out there who say some really awful things. Have you spoken to someone like John Boyega and said, how do I handle it?
You know, they've been really great about connecting me with the people who've like been through this. I haven't necessarily reached out. You know what I mean? It's weird, you know? So I think for right now, the course of action for me has just been to mind my eyes so I can check my mouth and, you know, call it a day, I guess.
Racist Star Wars fans aren't new. Why doesn't Disney do more to protect its actors? In a way, they did by letting her in on the fact that they were going to create a racist backlash marketing campaign for Obi-Wan because they knew it was a giant turd.
It seems that some of the fan base from this influential fan base have decided to attack Moses Ingram online and send her the most horrendous racist DMs. And it just sickened me to my stomach to hear that this had been happening. And if you're sending her bullying messages, you're no Star Wars fan in my mind.
I know I'm a bad man on the internet to insinuate something crazy like Disney, known for its authenticity, its honesty, its candor, its integrity, would go out and purposefully create a narrative that would divide human beings, divide fandoms, call some of their lifelong paying customers bigots. They would never go so far as to use a former Lucasfilm associate with the full support of current Lucasfilm employees to associate yours truly and some of my friends like Ryan Kinnell and Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers as part of some vast alt-right conspiracy. Except when they did, in plain sight, how white supremacy, misogyny, and hate targeted the Star Wars sequel trilogy and won. And this is just a few examples of hundreds of articles over the last few years attacking fans. So you might understand why people are a little down on Lucasfilm. And while the rhetoric is not as bad around Indiana Jones 5 yet, this article might take the cake. You're going to have to bear with me on this one, folks. Indiana Jones highlights the limits of Hollywood's National Socialist obsession. While it hasn't limited the media's National Socialist obsession, it's too bad that decades of anti-National Socialist films have seemingly done so little to inoculate the U.S. polity against fascism beyond maybe a meme or two. Let's hear what Noah Berlatsky, cultural critic, has to say. Indiana Jones will be happy to punch neo-National Socialists, Harrison Ford said in a recent interview, promoting the newest installment in the iconic franchise, Indiana Jones and the multiple late-night trips to the bathroom. He'd push him out of the way and get in the first punch, Ford said, as well as he should. Ford added that Indiana Jones lives in a black and white world where it's incalculable that this vision of evil not be confronted. While it's incredible that they got that much out of Harrison Ford in an interview,
Did you shoot Greedo first, or did Greedo shoot you first?
I don't care.
you might understand why he's not a big fan of the National Socialists.
Harrison Ford's a quarter Jewish. Not too shabby.
No one has a problem with Indiana Jones beating the crap out of National Socialists. He did that in 2 of the 3 Indiana Jones films because there's only 3 Indiana Jones films. But I wonder what the author meant by neo-National Socialist. Does he mean the actual National Socialists or half the country? Let's find out. Ford, of course, is the actor who has played America's foremost fictional archaeologist, adventurer, and National Socialist puncher for the past 40 years. His enthusiasm for thumping the newly emboldened far right is welcome. Well, I guess that answers that question. At this point, it's just a matter of time until this guy mentions a certain date in January. And this is why you don't cater to the activist doctrine, because it's never enough. But unfortunately, the latest Indiana Jones installment continues a Hollywood tradition of punching National Socialists without doing much to explain why National Socialists are bad or how you recognize them. And this is something you need to learn from an Indiana Jones film. Listen, as much as I've criticized Hollywood and the legacy media in the past and will continue in the future, I don't think either of them have undersold how bad National Socialism is. Now, they've both been a little soft on communism, and we know why that is. We generally think that black and white morality makes evil easier to identify. I remind you, we're talking about an Indiana Jones film. Mind you, a bad one, but it's still based on the 3 good ones, which are quite literally good versus evil, based on Saturday morning serials from the 40s and 50s. But Hollywood simplifications can make it harder to do the right thing in the real world, where the villains don't always cover themselves in convenient swastikas. Well, Noah, I would argue the world has never been like that, but to be fair, there is a group right now running around with armbands with a red and black flag, which just so happen to be the same colors as the other bad guys you're talking about. How does this relate to a soulless corporate remake of a once-beloved franchise? Well, he continues. Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost franchise is set mostly in 1969 as aged, sad, and broken Indy races rocket scientist and former National Socialist Jürgen Voller, played by Mads Mikkelsen, to retrieve the ancient Antikythera mechanism, which supposedly holds the key to time travel. Voller hopes to use the artifact to turn back the clock and win World War II, which sounds stupid. Listen, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis would have made a better story and quite possibly a more successful film because there's a general interest in Atlantis right now, but instead, woke Disney wanted to force in the National Socialists again because they wanted to reinforce the insane idea that there's one around every corner here in America. There's a single scene in which Voller expresses racism when he sneeringly implies a waiter isn't really American because he is black. But otherwise, Voller just behaves like a standard supervillain, ranting on cue and ruthlessly pursuing world domination for its own sake, without much more reference to his ideological motivations. The swastika is a convenient way to label the bad guys, but as a symbol, it's a hollow one. Oh, shit. It wasn't woke enough, folks. What the hell do you want, Indiana Jones and the List of Schindler? Would this be a bad time to mention that Disney thanked a concentration camp in China? Director James Mangold is much more focused on, oh my god, fun chase scenes and on the mechanics of riding a horse into the subway than he is on fighting fascism. And I can't believe I'm now defending James Mangold. That's what an Indiana Jones film is supposed to be, moron. Hate to break this to you, Noah, buddy, but it's folks like you who have made the swastika a hollow symbol because you have falsely applied it to the people you ideologically disagree with. But you're not alone. The entire legacy media apparatus has done this along with their friends in corporate America, including Disney. Hollywood in general wants to tell fun, exciting adventure stories, except they don't really do that anymore. But real-life National Socialism, spouting real-life bigotry, and committing real-life atrocities aren't much fun. If you showed Indy fighting January 6 rioters, there we have it, ladies and gentlemen, for example, you'd get some pushback. Right on cue, and this is what we've come to expect from the activist media. Although our friend Noah knows dick about Indiana Jones, it's not going to stop him from giving Disney a little advice as to how to make Indiana Jones and the box office of doom a little more politically active. Now, we know that Voller is based on Werner von Braun, and he suggests this. The movie could perhaps have shown Voller hobnobbing with U.S. power brokers. He might have bonded with his bosses over the sort of casual anti-Semitism that certainly existed in the U.S. in 1969 because Voller being a National Socialist isn't enough.
Nazi schmazi, says Werner von Braun.
None of this means Hollywood is responsible for a resurgence of fascism. I beg to differ. Hollywood has certainly played their part, but it's too bad that decades of anti-National Socialist films have seemingly done so little to inoculate the U.S. polity against fascism beyond maybe a meme or two, and we know activists can't meme. But they certainly can write a predictably hilarious, insane article that forces in their fundamentalist ideological beliefs and relate it to an Indiana Jones film. Punching ideas is tricky, so is punching delusions, and fascism is an idea at first, before it persuades people to wear armbands and storm the US Capitol. There it is, the second reference to that day in January. And no, this article wasn't sponsored or written by anybody from Disney or Lucasfilm, but it certainly hurts their film because this is the kind of thing that Kathleen Kennedy, Bob Iger, and Lucasfilm have invited in. Activism. You've seen and heard employees, executives, and representatives of Disney and Lucasfilm endorse activism and condemnations of their paying customers. What you haven't seen or heard is anyone from Lucasfilm or Disney, any employee, executive, or representative clap back at any of this political activism or defend the fans, save for once when one CEO suggested that Disney not be political. He was forced to shoot a hostage video and then he was fired in the middle of the night on a Sunday. Political bigotry is real, and it's not just something Disney, Lucasfilm, or Marvel not talk about. It's something they enthusiastically support. And again, this is all made possible by their allies in the legacy activist Access Media, who allows Disney to work in a gray area of slightly plausible but mostly improbable deniability. And they're finally paying some financial consequences almost across the board. And it's not just affecting Disney, it's affecting Hollywood. Take the politically activist path, prioritize the message over storytelling, and your projects are going to fail. That's why Indiana Jones and the Last Charade is doomed, and at this point, that's a good thing. If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.
Nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe.